Hi everybody, this is City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today is day 11 of Christy's Beautiful Life, 30 Days of Sketches, and Scraptember 2021. Today's sketch includes a wreath, and I really love wreaths. I love creating those on scrapbook layouts, so I was really excited to see that. And the Scraptember prompt is enamel dots or nouveau drops. I started out this layout by cutting out a thin circle. I used a large Creative Memories circle cutter, and I want to use this circle to form the wreath on. I was afraid that if I tried to make the circle without having something like this, it would be crooked. So I'm using this circle as a guide, and I also cut out a piece of cardstock the size of the photo that I'm going to be putting on the wreath, and that way I would know where to put the flowers and where I could leave them off of the circle. The paper collection that I'm using is called Wanderlust, and that was made by a company called First Edition. I got this pad in Joann's, and I fussy cut out all of these flowers. There are so many beautiful flowers in this collection, and I thought that this was a really unusual color scheme. It has pink and navy blue and gray and almost a coral color, but like a dark coral color. I'm not sure how to explain or describe those medium-sized flowers, but I really liked all of the florals, and I really liked the way the colors all look together. I want to pop up some of the flowers, and I want to leave some of the flowers flat. I feel like it's that difference between them, the contrast between the flowers that are popped up and the flowers that are flat, that makes the wreath more interesting. So the first flowers that I put down are the largest flowers, and those are the ones that are pinkish, coralish colors. I'm trying to make the wreath look circular. I was thinking that at this point it's looking a little oval. I do address that in a bit, but I was starting to notice that. Now I'm adding in some touches of yellow. These smaller flowers are beautiful yellow, and I feel like they're a great addition to the wreath. And then I was thinking that in order to make the wreath look a little more circular, I should put some flowers to the left of the photo. And I feel like that helped a little bit with making it look more circular, although it still looks a little funky, but I feel like that's much better. There were lots of leaves to fussy cut, so I fussy cut out some leaves that were gray and coral, and some were blue, and I'm tucking those in different spots around the wreath now. And I placed the whole wreath on this dark piece of paper. I don't use this piece of paper, but I felt that it would be better to see the wreath against a dark piece of paper because then the imperfections would be more obvious. And I could see that the lower right-hand corner of the wreath does look a little odd, but I'm going to be adding a whole lot of other flowers and florals to this, so it ends up, I think, looking okay in the end. ATG adhesive is one of my favorite adhesives. I guess it's my favorite. And I really feel like having an adhesive that is repositionable is important for something like this, where you're arranging lots of small things that might have to be moved around. And there have been times when I've tried to be decisive and I've glued things down thinking I have to just glue things down and get them done, but I end up regretting it. So I feel like I just have to know myself as a scrapbooker. I like to trial things and decide if I like them or not, and then potentially move them around. So for me, using an adhesive that isn't permanent works very well. At least until I'm sure that I like where everything is. Then it's okay to attach things down permanently or glue them down. Now I'm going to be working on the background. I started off with a white piece of paper, and on top of that, I layered a yellow dotted paper from the Wanderlust collection. I gutted it out, and then I took a white piece of paper and I cut it a little bit smaller so there would be a yellow border. And now I'm going to layer this blue paper on top of it. This blue paper is a Heidi Swapp paper from a much older collection called No Limits. Years ago at Tuesday Morning, I bought a pack of paper. There were 25 sheets of this same paper in the pack, and I've used so many of these sheets of paper. I have a couple left, but I really get a lot of use out of it. It's this beautiful light blue on the other side and then this dark blue on this side. I mounted my photo on the white piece of cardstock. That's a photo of my younger daughter, Julia. She's about to go to, I think, a junior ball in that picture, or a prom. I don't recall off the top of my head, but she was all dressed up. Her hair was curled. She was in a pretty dress. And I have lots of pictures of her in the dress, but I wanted to capture this picture of her that just showed her face and her smile. I used a die and one of the pattern papers that was in the pad to cut out all of these die cuts of leaves. I just love adding leaves to any florals that are on a scrapbook layout, especially when they're in a wreath formation. I think that the leaves really bring the wreath to life and make it look more realistic. So I'm taking these stems, and these are longer stems, and I'm cutting them in half for the most part, and I'm able to use both the top and the bottom. There's a way that you can cut them so that the bottom doesn't look like it's cut in half. So whether I'm using the whole die cut or I'm cutting it in half, I want to spread these all over the wreath. I want them to be on the inside of the wreath and the outside of the wreath. And I really liked this yellow paper. It has some dark yellow in it and some light yellow in it. And I liked the way it stood out from the navy blue in the background. And this is the part where I get excited because I feel that the layout is kind of coming together. And even though I didn't do much to fix the wonkiness of the wreath, once I start tucking in all of the florals, I feel that it looks much more full and it doesn't look so lopsided. And there have been quite a few times when leaves have come to the rescue in my layouts where adding them makes the whole page look a little bit better. Now I'm going to add some photo corners to the layout. I'm just using some of that dark blue pattern paper, and I punched out the photo corners using an EK Success photo corner punch. And that's a scalloped photo corner punch. There's a little tiny scallop along the outer edge. And now I'm going to go around with some glue and attach those florals down since I am happy with where they are. And I only glue them down at the very base, so if I change my mind, that's okay. I can always pull them out and it won't cause any damage to the page. Now I'm using a paint marker, and I had to cut some of this out because in order to put the paint down well, I have to get right over on top of what I'm putting the paint down on, in this case the leaves, and my head was in the way so many times, but I did want to leave in a little bit of footage of me using the paint pen. I really love using these white paint pens. I'm just highlighting a couple of little spots on each of these flowers. I'm not being careful. I'm not overthinking it. I trace around the whole outer edge of the larger flowers, and then I'll highlight some of the folds in the flower that are on the inside. And for the leaves, I'm just drawing some lines on the insides of the leaves. And I think that this adds a lot of contrast between the flowers and the other elements that are on the page. On the left-hand side, you see that I pulled out some really small white flowers that are in my stash. These are just some probably mulberry paper flowers. And if you recall, the Scraptember prompt was to use enamel dots. Now, these aren't enamel dots. These are pearls, but they're very close. And I didn't have any enamel dots that were the correct color. So I felt that this was an acceptable substitute. I hope that the ladies at Plan Scraptember would agree with me. Other than the markings that I made with the paint pen and a couple of other very small areas, there's really not a lot of white in this layout. So I thought that these white flowers would help to brighten up the wreath. And also I like the idea of adding a really small flower because there's so many big flowers. So I sprinkle those flowers around the wreath. And then I add a few more of those pearls to the photo corners. I go back in with the paint pen and add a few more marks with the pen on the leaves. I have some more fussy cut pieces that I want to include on the layout. I have some blue leaves. There are quite a few coral and yellow butterflies, and I want to find spots for those around the layout, so I'm trialing them in different spots. And then I decided that I should probably get to work on my title. I had a pack of Blvd chipboard titles, and I thought this one, Sweet You, would be perfect for this layout. So I punched it out from its chipboard sheet and I just laid it down on the layout, and I'll be going back to that. I'm using the paint marker to make some lines on a few more navy blue leaves. And I vary the length of the line. Some are long, some are short. Sometimes I'm just making dots, and I think that makes it all a little bit more interesting. Now I'm gluing down those white flowers. I feel happy with where they are, so I'm using some of this Elmer's gel glue, and I'm attaching them down. And I love to use gel glue. I just like the way it dries clear, and it adheres most things pretty well. I added one more flower to the layout, and I made sure that I let the paint on those blue leaves dry. Those paint pens are truly paint, so they do need a little bit of drying time, or you could potentially smear the lines that you've made. Now I'm going to attach the title down to the background. For the title, I'm going to be using the ATG adhesive to attach it down. And I also spread the butterflies around again, and I decided that it would look best if the butterflies were mainly sitting either on or close to the wreath. And I always love the way butterflies look, especially when there are florals on a page. Even though the letters for the title were stickers, I used some ATG adhesive to attach them down, and then you could see that off camera I moved the title all the way down to the lower right-hand side of the wreath. I add a pearl to the little white heart, and I attach down all those butterflies. I put some foam underneath their wings so their wings would be lifted up a little bit. In order to make the photo a little bit more prominent, I want to give it some dimension. So I took it off of the wreath, and I'm using some fun foam and piecing it together to help pop the photo up off the background. I'm using ATG adhesive on the back of the foam to hold the photo in place. And then I added this hair bow to the layout. There was a little spot on it, so I decided to cover up the spot with a jewel, and then I added a couple more jewels all over the bow just so that there wouldn't be one jewel on the bow. To add a little something to the butterflies, I'm using these strips of very, very small pearls and running them down the center of all the butterflies. And that completes this layout, everybody. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope that you enjoyed it. In the description box, you'll find all the materials I used to make this layout, and you'll also find links to all the other scrapbookers who are following along with this challenge. There's a link to the Facebook group, which is a lot of fun, and I hope that I will see you again tomorrow for day 12. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.